welcome. This is India Sense. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. Let's get you the headlines this Friday evening. First up, Prime Minister Modi's historic three-nation tour to Nigeria, Brazil and Guyana from 16th to 21st of November. Prime Minister's visit reiterates India's commitment to voice the Global South's concerns within multilateral forums like G20. Donald Trump ropes in Tulsi Gabbard, the first Hindu-American in U.S. Congress and vocal critic of the state of Hindu minorities in Bangladesh, as the next chief of U.S. intelligence. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stares at increasing uncertainty at home and abroad as Donald Trump set to return to the White House for a second term. We decode Trudeau's Trump dilemma and its key impact for New Delhi. Big boost to New Delhi's Make in India defense manufacturing push. DRDO conducts maiden flight test of its 1,000-kilometer long-range land attack cruise missile. The move further bolsters New Delhi's Make in India defense manufacturing push. The Dragon has had enough. We decode why Beijing is pushing to deploy its own security for Chinese citizens in the cash-strapped nation. China gets boots on ground in Pakistan. How will this impact the security calculus in the region? And writing is on the wall. India's GDP likely to surpass Japan's, making it the world's fourth largest economy by 2025. All right, on to our big story that we are tracking on India Sense today, which is Prime Minister Modi's three-nation tour that is set to start from the 16th of November. All eyes are on the upcoming G20 summit that will take place in Brazil. In the wake of India's groundbreaking presidency in 2023, the world is now bracing for a new chapter of global diplomacy, one where India continues to assert itself as the voice of the global South during and of course pushing the narrative of inclusivity, sustainability and reform on the global stage. In fact, India's leadership in 2023 saw the G20 encompassing 88% of the global GDP, 78% of international trade and 3/4 of the world's population. These numbers tell a story of unprecedented cooperation, but there's more. It in fact reflects India's rising stature as a leader of the world's emerging economies. New Delhi is advocating for fairer and more sustainable global development. In fact, the summit also saw pivotal milestones like the Green Development Pact, which committed G20 nations to tripling their renewable energy capacity by 2030, and the launch of the Global Biofuels Alliance, which was a groundbreaking initiative designed to boost sustainable biofuel production globally. India is set to continue its focus as far as renewable energy is concerned, both at G20 and also at the bilateral visits that are lined up later, whether it's Nigeria or Guyana. This is the first G20 where the African Union will be a full member after its induction last year at the India Summit. In fact, this year's G20 and its declaration will be reflective of the global South and play a central role as far as the global decision-making is concerned. And this year, India's focus will be on ensuring the hard-won gains of 2023 are not lost. The 2024 G20 theme, which is building a just world and a sustainable planet, aligns perfectly with India's long-standing stance, one that's calling for a need for global governance reforms, social inclusion, and a shift to sustainable development. India's core message will continue to resonate. A just and sustainable world can only be achieved with the voices of the global South. Emerging economies are heard loud and clear. India's advocacy is based on the belief that any real solutions, whether it's for climate change, whether it's for closing the digital divide, will be found only if they are inclusive and they address the needs of the world's most vulnerable. The bilateral with Guyana is part of India's strategy to engage more with the CARICOM nations. It follows Jamaican Prime Minister's recent visit to India. collaboration is going to be on economic ties, climate assistance, as well as strengthening the historical and cultural ties that India has with CARICOM nations. Shifting focus now to the other big story that we are tracking, which is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's dilemma, which is only increasing, where he's standing at and staring at more turmoil, both at home and abroad. Trudeau is grappling with a rapidly volatile domestic and international landscape. One first, in fact, often first on the call list of newly elected US President. Trudeau's Canada, in fact, fell behind India in terms of reaching out to President-elect Donald Trump. Trudeau and Trump, in fact, spoke after the President-elect had spoken with leaders from Italy, Ukraine, Hungary, and UK, amongst others. This gives an indication about Donald Trump's policies, his priorities, and how he views the current Canadian Prime Minister. This report tells you why the US-Canada relationship could witness a reboot and how it will impact New Delhi.
Trump's return to the White House has sent shockwaves through Ottawa. Canada now braces for potential trade wars and uncertainty in one of its most important foreign relationships. And it seems Trump does not fancy the present Trudeau-led Canadian government. In his previous term, Trump upended the North American Free Trade Pact with Canada and slapped higher tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium. With a historic mandate to push his America First ideology, Trump 2.0 will double down on this. A move that will deeply hit Canada's faltering economy. But it's not just trade policies. Trump's administration may view Trudeau's harboring of Khalistani terrorists harshly. RCMP's failed probe in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Nijjar, which has so far produced zero proof, may be viewed for what it is, a motivated agenda against India. The Five Eyes network that will be supervised by Tulsi Gabbard as the next intel chief will seek proof from Trudeau for his provocative and baseless allegations against India. And that's not enough. Trump 2.0 will reorient NATO, forcing Canada to cough up more money to meet 2% target for defense spending, something Canada is unlikely to do till 2032. The next US National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, Mike Huckabee, the next US envoy to Israel, and Elon Musk, one of Trump's biggest advisors, are vocal critics of Trudeau's policies. It remains to be seen if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will be able to steer this storm. Or is it time out Trudeau?
Shifting focus now to the other wide-angle story that we are discussing, which is the latest that's happening in Bangladesh. In fact, Dhaka's journey is interesting. It's gone from East Pakistan to Bangladesh. It took it 50 years, and now it was a historic but a painful journey that Dhaka undertook, one where India and its then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi played a very pivotal role. And now New Delhi is watching Bangladesh retrace some of those steps. In less than 100 days after Bangladesh witnessed a long and messy student-cum-political protest, the country is now descending into what many would call chaos and turmoil, with fundamentalists now taking control of the country. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, who is the advisor to the interim government, has promised big-ticket reforms aimed to reinstate the democratic and constitutional fabric of the country. But worryingly, the reforms that are in the pipeline include removing the secular word from the country's constitution. That's a key reform. And turning it into an Islamic country. Minorities have faced brutal atrocities. And with the secular status gone, the persecution is only set to increase. Another major area of focus is to ban the Awami League, Sheikh Hasina's political party, and also get a red corner notice against the former Bangladesh Prime Minister. Now, another key priority for the government right now is to start diplomatic ties with Pakistan, which it did not have till now, due to the scars that were left by the atrocities committed by the then Pakistani army in the run-up to the Bangladesh independence movement in 1971. But what has changed? Well, Jamaat-e-Islami is now a key political force in Bangladesh right now, which is why measures are being taken to possibly even erase some of the local Bangla culture that is so integral to the people of Bangladesh. And that is the reason why there are now great overtures being made to Pakistan. There's already been one first activity that has taken place that brings Pakistan and Bangladesh closer. Remains to be seen where this goes from now on. Elections are on the anvil, but there is no clear time frame. And the reason for that is that the present political class wants to push through constitutional changes, one that are unlikely to take Bangladesh forward. There's a possibility that a lot of extreme measures will get passed before Trump 2.0 gets into force. Trump's stance on Bangladeshi Hindus, appointment of Hindu leader Tulsi Gabbard will mean possibly trouble for the Bangladesh government. To avoid any clashes, fundamentalists will use the window till the 20th of January 2025, and possibly more radical changes could be in the offing. All right, Inside Story segment on the show where we tell you exactly what's happening as far as China-Pakistan is concerned. There is an economic corridor, the China-Pakistan economic corridor. It rests on the fundamental fact that it is meant to provide greater economic benefits both to China and to Pakistan. And also centered on that is the cornerstone of the whole project, which is to raise concerns for India strategically and on a security basis. But what's unraveling here is the fact that there have been multiple attacks on the CPEC projects, raising concerns about whether Chinese investments are viable or not. What is China's solution? They want to get their own boots on ground in Pakistan, ostensibly to protect their Chinese investments. But what happens when a foreign country's boots are on ground of another country? Well, sovereignty is at stake. Territorial sovereignty is at stake. And that's exactly what may happen in Pakistan as well. It changes the calculus for New Delhi, for the entire region, but most importantly, for Pakistan as well. Take a look at this report.
Karachi 2024, a city on the edge. An airport suicide bombing rocks the streets, sending shockwaves through the region. But this isn't just an attack on Pakistan. It's an attack on China's economic ambitions, and the stakes have never been higher. China's economic juggernaut is heavily invested in Pakistan, billions of dollars in infrastructure, mines, and ports, a long-standing partnership born from the China-Pakistan economic corridor. But this fragile alliance is beginning to crack. In the wake of the bombing, Beijing's frustration is reaching a boiling point. China is demanding that Pakistan allow its own security personnel to protect Chinese nationals. The message is clear: if you can't keep us safe, we'll take matters into our own hands. For China, this is more than just about protecting its people, it's about protecting its wallet. With billions in projects and investments at stake, Beijing is tightening its grip. But here's the question: is China's push for control over security just a move to guard its assets, or is it a calculated step toward turning Pakistan into something more? Pakistan's sovereignty is at a crossroads. With Chinese military personnel in the mix, Beijing's influence is no longer just economic. It's strategic, military, and perhaps political. Some fear this could be the first step in transforming Pakistan into an extension of China's reach, a satellite where Beijing pulls the string behind the curtain. The attack on Chinese workers in Pakistan have become a constant headache for both countries, and while Pakistan has promised to improve security, China's patience is wearing thin. Trust is a fragile commodity, and after these attacks, it's hard to say who really has Pakistan's back. China's message to Pakistan: we've invested too much to leave this to chance. With the growing threat of extremism and the strategic value of CPEC, it's clear that China is playing the long game, and the consequences of failure could shatter their partnership. As China pushes for more control, Pakistan's autonomy hangs in the balance. Will it remain a sovereign nation, or will it become a pawn in Beijing's quest for global dominance? One thing is for sure, China's patience is running out. Pakistan's future and its freedom may just depend on the next move in this high-stakes game of power.
All right, we're slipping into a very short break, but we come back and talk about, well, the biggest India ascent story. India is set to surpass Japan a year ahead of schedule to become the world's fourth largest economy. We come back and talk more. Stay with us. Welcome back. On India Ascents, we are talking about the rise of the Indian economy. It's set to surpass Japan by 2025. That is next year. It'll be the world's fourth largest economy. And that is on the back of high growth. In fact, better expectations in terms of growth rates going forward, a younger population, all tailwinds supporting India's growth. At a time when Japan is facing, well, twin problems. One, a weakening economy, as well as weakening currency. Now, remember, this is a year ahead of schedule. Earlier, there were estimates that India may surpass Japan only by 2026. The reason for this is that IMF predicts India's GDP will be about 4.33 trillion by next year, surpassing Japan's, which is about 4.31. By the end of 2030, India is set to be a $7 trillion economy and as a major economic powerhouse. In the next 4 years, coinciding with Trump's return to Oval Office, it may also offer a lot of economic opportunities for India. Tariffs may be part of the trade-off, but if US economies look to downsize their Chinese operations, India will be a major beneficiary. In fact, economic growth is in line with India's larger geopolitical stature, which by many accounts is now much bigger than Japan. As per the Asia Power Index, a ranking of about 27 countries undertaken by the Australian think tank Lowy Institute, India has overtaken Japan to become the third largest power in Asia, behind just China and the US. And the Asia Power Index is an evaluation done on key metrics. All right, it's the Top Voice segment on the show. We talk more about what's happening in Bangladesh with Dr. Mahdi Amin, who is advisor to the BNP chief, to talk more about what's happening in Bangladesh and BNP's plan and agenda. Dr. Amin, help us through what is the agenda that BNP has for Bangladesh.
Well, thank you for inviting me today. In Bangladesh, there is a lot of ongoing conversation about the reforms, the plans, and it's encouraging that many of these ideas have already been outlined in the BNP's 31-point framework for structural reforms. This shows how deeply the main political party of today's Bangladesh is integrated with the aspirations and sentiments of the nation. Our 31-point framework it's built upon the achievements, ideologies, and ambitions of BNP statesmen across generations, drawing from Shahid President Ziaur Rahman's 19-point program, BNP Chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia's Vision 2030, and our acting chairman, Mr. Tariq Rahman's 27-point charter, which was announced in 2022. And finally, based on the consensus of political parties involved in the simultaneous movement to restore democracy, Mr. Tariq Rahman declared a 31-point outline in July 2023 as part of a broader consensus. As he said, as Mr. Tariq Rahman and the BNP believe, when we talk about reforms, we are aiming for real, meaningful changes, not just changing a few lines or paragraphs in the constitution.
You're advising the acting chairman of BNP. Tell us that do the constitutional changes that BNP wants also includes changing the country's constitution from secular to Islamic?
Now, as I said, it's not about changing paragraphs. It's not about changing sentences. It's about changing in a way that's reflected by people's aspirations. And we are a country that always holds together all the religions. There is no religious division. So we want to be together with same rights, same freedoms, based on equality.
Okay. All right, Dr. Amin. Thanks for giving that perspective from Dhaka in terms of what's happening in Bangladesh right now. All right. quick take segment on the show. First up, world is on fire, literally, with climate change and chaos now making things much tougher. It's a reality that the world is living with. And as the earth sweats under record-breaking temperatures, the question arises, who will lead the fight to save our planet? As world leaders gather for COP29 in Baku, India is pushing for a climate revolution, one that balances the scales between the global north and global south. But will the rich nations listen? New Delhi's fight at COP29 will determine whether the global south will finally get its seat at the table or if this year's climate summit becomes another broken promise. From the days of empty arsenals to a thriving era of self-reliance, India's remarkable Atmanirbhar or Make in India defence manufacturing journey is now a point of pride for every Indian. New Delhi's defence production has soared to 1.27 lakh crore in 23-24 with a growth of 32.5%. A target is 1.75 lakh crore for next year, setting the pace for India's aspiration towards self-reliance and global tech collaboration, which could increase during Trump 2.0. All right, crucial assembly elections lined up in India. India's richest state, Maharashtra, is set to elect a new legislature. Maharashtra elections are set to take place on the 20th of November. And besides Maharashtra, voting is taking place in the mining-rich state of Jharkhand in 2 phases. Results will be announced on the 23rd of November. Remains to be seen whether BJP will be able to maintain its winning streak after the Haryana elections. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.